Hey, welcome back to a second chance. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Let's Talk on a Second Chance. My name is Philip Jones.
And I am Tafaro Cook, two-time kidney transplant recipient and founder of Kidney Care Coaches, where we coach people with stage 3 to stage 5 kidney disease. If you know someone who has kidney disease and they need to be coached, hit us up at kidneycarecoaches.com, or you can hit us on our email. That's email at kidneycarecoaches.com. Thank
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and if you're on dialysis and you need that help, definitely look out for 10 dialysis commandments coming out
you. Yes,
soon by Mr. Cook here in Kidney Care Coaches.
right.
It's going to be
It
some
is.
very interesting stuff. I'm on dialysis myself, so I'm definitely going to read it. I know some tricks of the trade I need to know from Mr. Cook, so I'm definitely gonna get on that myself when it come out.
And I'm
Um,
definitely gonna give them to you, brother. The tricks and trades of somebody from who, hey, over a decade, and during that time, I survived and thrived because I was working with all types of, myself and other patients as well too. So I feel you, man. Yeah, check it out.
and it's needed. Again, I mean, I've been on dialysis almost the same amount of time, but ain't nobody perfect. We make mistakes and some things we still need to
Hey,
know to make sure that we get through this thing smoothly to get to a transplant. So, it's definitely some information that is needed to help people coast into this transplant thing, going from dialysis into transplant life. So, good stuff, Miss Cook. Good stuff.
thank you, thank you.
So to start today off, we're gonna go into I'm gonna just read a couple of things. Question was asked from us yesterday, basically if a pacemaker was similar to the bioartificial kidney in terms of how it works, right? So I'm gonna just read these definitions for you. This is as far as we're gonna go with this for now until we do our due diligence and kind of do some more research between both medical assistance devices, and then we'll come back and address that at a later date. We may even have somebody come on that can make those connections on a professional level for us to explain that, and give that information. So,
And with that
um,
being said, Phil, I don't even know, will it be some time for some people to get on it and see, you know what I mean? So that could be
right.
a question too. But go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you good. No, that's a good. We might be one of those days we got to extend and make a little bit more time, right? Because it may be a little hard to kind of get it into full detail and
Right.
explaining those two medical assistance devices in 20-30 minutes. So yeah, those might be one of those days where we have to extend it a little bit, but we'll get there when we get there. Um, so just to kind of read some things again, and we'll jump into something else. It says the implantable artificial kidney contains microchip filters and living kidney cells and will be powered by patient's own heart. The microchip uses the same silicone nanotechnology that the microelectronics industry uses for computers. Um, Something else there that says the artificial kidney filters waste through conviction using the body's natural blood pressure to separate blood cells, proteins, and other larger components from the small toxins and waste products that can fit through the pores of the hemofilter. So, that's the definition for the bioartificial kidney. Overview for the pacemaker. Pacemaker is a small device that's placed, implanted in the chest to help control the heartbeat. It's used to prevent the heart from beating too slowly. Implanting a pacemaker in the chest requires a surgical procedure. We all kind of know how that goes. Now, there are a number of pacemakers, and I won't get into uh, what all these three entail. I'll just give you the names of them. So there's a single chamber pacemaker, a dual chamber pacemaker, and a bioventricle pacemaker. So When you get time, you can go up, look those things up, and kind of see the difference. We just wanted to kind of shortly elaborate on that question I was given to us at the end of yesterday's show when we started. So to go into today's topic, we brought this up a number of times on the show, on Sunday nights and other, Thursday, maybe a Thursday night show that we've done and things of that nature. And so please correct me if this is incorrect, Mr. Cook. But by 2025, they want to have 80% of kidney patients on home dialysis.
That is correct, and I believe you're right. By 2025, the bill was signed. I believe when President Trump was in office, that he wanted everybody to who's on dialysis, and we already know if you're on peritoneal, you're already doing it at home. But this goes for a home hemo, where they're stating they want 80 to 85% of all patients by 2025 to be doing home hemodialysis. Now, that's a great thing, but it does have its pros and cons, because the reason why I feel it has its pros and cons is because the the majority of people on dialysis are over 65 years old. The the challenge with getting everybody to do home hemo, 80% at least, is the default mechanism is once they're on home hemo, they learn how to do it. You know, what can happen is if they're self cannulating, they might have a problem with that. They might have a problem putting themselves on the machine. And I'm talking about the cons right now, because we know the pros will be great, but the cons are self cannulating. And if people over 65, 9 times out of 10, when it comes to kidney disease, they have another element that brought them to kidney disease, which could be cardiac problems, which could be high blood, diabetes, something else that caused the kidneys to go bad. The default mechanism is, as soon as somebody messes up on home hemo, they go right back to center, because they're paranoid. They're scared. They're like, hey, I don't want to do this. And a lot of times it's because that you're not educated enough. You don't know what you're doing, and a lot of people just don't trust themselves, so they rather let the nurses do it. That's the drawback to this. So it's all good in theory when you hear we want 80% of people by 25, and that's only 3 years away if you look at it. That's not even that much time, that they want everybody being on home dialysis. Again, the challenge is who's going to watch these patients? Who's going to make sure they're doing the right thing? And does all these patients, when you talk about this many patients, do they have a caregiver? Do they have somebody that can, watch what they're doing, and somebody else that can help? Now we know, these machines are self manually done, the home hemo. You do PD and you do it all by yourself. And we know people who are on hemo at home can do it by yourself. They have, those devices where you can do it by yourself. They have onset, they got their Tableau. Fresenius has their next stage, and all these other ones that have them. But again, how do we make 80% of these people be comfortable doing their own dialysis? And do they set the times right? Do they set the weight right? Do they crash? All these things. Does the blood pressure drop high? Who's going to help these patients? And if that's the case, you're going to have to hire a whole bunch of home nurses going to people's houses every other day. And that's going to be a lot. And then again, like I said, the default mechanism of them having anything issue going on with their home hemo, they go right back to the center, because they're like, look, I infiltrated my fistula. This happened. I started getting dizzy on the machine. My blood pressure started dropping. All these things. As soon as that happens, people go right back to the center. So that's my only concern with that.
Yeah, that's actually kind of the same thing that I was thinking, but I think that it would be easier. We touched on this before, where financially it would put these hospitals and companies in a better position when it comes to the money that they spend, because you look at how many people are on a team in the center, right? You gotta have a doctor, you maybe two, just in case that one goes on vacation or things like that. That care has to continue. You got to be able to get in touch with somebody to write prescriptions and change things, and then you have, what, uh, multiple teams of nurses, because not all dialysis units are, have nurses that can just work, basically the whole day, so you got to be able, might have to split those, excuse me, into shifts where you have 5 or 6 nurses come in, starting at 4:30 in the morning, and then by the time you get to 3:30, you got another shift of nurses coming in for that later half of the day to take care of those patients, right? So you gotta, plus you have a cleaning crew that has to be there 24/7, that can, be there to make sure things are sterile consistently, clean up when, hopefully nobody, does infect or anything like that, and it starts to leak and there's blood all over the place. And you've seen those days where it's just like a bloodbath, one of those days, for some patients. So you
I've
gotta
had one. Hey, my arms, wouldn't stop bleeding after I did a dialysis, and yeah, several times. So I could go on and tell you horror stories about that. And I agree with you, but I guess they're talking about doing it because it's going to save money in the long run. So what you're saying,
exactly.
again, you don't have to have a doctor on site. You don't have to have nurses all the time. Everybody who does do home hemo has a tablet now where you just put your information in and it goes straight to the doctor, and that's how they do it now. The majority of people who do it, especially when they first start, they don't get a fistula. They keep the cath in. The only challenge with the cath, and I did a documentary for Ohio State University for having fistulas. The only challenge with that is the line, the CDC, you can't get a good clearance with it. You can only run the machine so high.
Mm-hmm.
Another problem with it is infection. If it when the line gets infected, it's infecting your heart immediately. So that's what happens with that. And I just have a challenge with, and I know it's all about saving money, but
Right.
when you look at it from a long standing point, does it really save money? Because now you got to pay nurses to go house to house. And what if a nurse is in that vicinity and she has to go to this house, but she has to run 10 miles and go to another house or whatever? Those nurses are going to be charging some serious money to do those things. So I just don't know. And of course, they ain't got to do it. They got to go just one time a week or whatever. I don't know how they're gonna set it up, but I just don't. From my standpoint, it's hard for me to see having 80% of all dialysis patients doing home hemo by 25. And I'm just saying, and I see the drawbacks of, you have an older population that's 65 and older, the majority of people doing dialysis. You have, and they're all, like I said, they always have something else going on with them. It's not just cut dry, okay, I'm just doing dialysis. It's very rare that you just see somebody just doing dialysis because the kidneys went out. Usually it's because of high blood pressure, diabetes, glomerulonephritis, and polycystic kidney disease. The list goes on. And they have a and dialysis is just the aftermath of that, is what I'm saying. So I just I question how they can have 80%, 80 to 85% of people doing it in 3 years. That's a big task, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, it is a financial thing. It's about money. They will save a load of money, actually, and We're kind of on the same page on this, but um, I think it would be a smart thing to pay, maybe two, three nurses, for some to assist somebody, at night, but you also give that option of being able to go on home peritoneal dialysis because you may have those people who are able to take care of themselves in that regard when it comes to connecting and things of that nature, which means that you won't even have to hire as many. But the thing is, it'll never cost as much to hire two nurses for a patient, elderly, not whatever, to take care of that dialysis treatment. It will never be as much than trying to hire 10 to 15 uh professional
But
workers
I get
to
what you're saying.
clean
But see, check
a
this out
center.
though. I get what you're saying, but the only challenge with that is the teams. When I was doing in center dialysis, those nurses and those techs, they kind of fed off each other. They knew what they were doing. They had a good nucleus. They worked the room and they did what they were supposed to do, opposed to you being on hemo and now a nurse has to come to your house. I get what you're saying because you're saying it's just one. It's just one. But don't you think that nurse, if she's just one and she's making rounds all over the neighborhood, all over the city, don't you think she's gonna have, she's gonna charge so much?
Well, that's why I wouldn't even say you have nurses that go
Or,
like
or are
house
they
to house.
techs? Or are people just they just hire techs? I don't know, because I feel peritoneal is a lot more. It's a lot easier. I did peritoneal for 6.5 years. I never and you did it even longer than that. And I talk to you all the time, man. I don't think you had a nurse come to your house at all, right? Have you ever
I've
had?
never had it. The only time a nurse came to my house was to give the okay for peritoneal dialysis.
That's what I'm talking about. So for me, when I was doing it for 6.5 years, I never had a nurse one time, and I got peritonitis 3 or 4 times, but I had to go to the hospital for that. But peritoneal seems a little bit more convenient when it comes to being at home because
Mhm.
it's set up for home. Now we're talking about setting up hemo for home. The only challenge is again, if you have a fistula and you got to self cannulate, that could be a challenge for some people. Now, if you got a CVC line, you can do that, but again, you still don't get the best overall dialysis treatment. One thing I do like about home treatment, and that's hemo, is you can do it at your own convenience, and you can run as long as you want to run. Like even if you want to run 3 days in a row, you have a better clearance because you're going to be a lot healthier because you're getting more dialysis. That means your
Right.
kidney is working a lot better. So I do like that aspect of it, but I just question, with an older population, 65 and over, that's the majority of people doing dialysis. I just don't know how somebody that old can take care of themselves while they're doing it home hemo. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's going to be a work in progress, uh and then I just thought about this as well. They might not even have to hire, even for the older people have to hire so many nurses to make this work, because you have those people who already have nurses in the family, and who don't
Not
mind
all
coming through the wall, and not everybody. No, it's not even probably, it's probably not even 10% or anything like that. But you still have to take into consideration that you do have those people who are either already in that position or are willing to learn it to take care of a loved one. Right? I give you a perfect
Now they do
example.
that. Yeah, a lot of people will learn it and just to take care of a loved one, and I agree with that. But again, that goes to caregivers and stuff. That goes back to the caregiver support and how many people have caregiver support. We got to take that in consideration too.
Right.
Everybody doesn't have a loved one, Erica has a question right here. She said, "Are we how close are we for the artificial kidney being released on the market?" Erica, what we found out was they are doing human trials. Am I right, Phil?
Yeah, I believe they are starting to do the human trials. They have done some trials just in general, period. Within the, I think the first article or so came out about 3 months ago. And so they are in that on that path to that. Yes.
The only question I have for being going back to the artificial kidney, being released. Now, I think there's going to be some red tape with people getting kidneys and don't have to use any medications. So we're cutting out some of the big pharma money. So I don't know how they're going to work that. I don't know how that's going to go. Another question I have for it, and what Phil and I talked about is if people get this transplant, will they be? And if it doesn't work, will they be still be able to stay on the organ transplant list, the kidney transplant list? And Phil brought that question up, and he said it several times, and I think it's a great question. And that's one of the main questions to me that needs to be answered because that's a prolific question to myself. I believe it is. So, Erica, as we learn more and more, we will keep you up to date on that. But going back to what we're talking about now with the 25 in 2025, 80% of people going to home dialysis. I get what you're saying, and I think that's why they want to do it because, like you said, Phil, in the long run, the big brick and mortar dialysis center is going to be a thing of the past. That's where we're going right now. And even though we still see companies still building dialysis centers, though. We still see them as we speak right now. They're building, the brick and mortar dialysis centers. Yeah, every time I turn around, I'm seeing a new one being brought up. So, that's a good question, man. These things remain to be answered. But again, I think both of them have their pros and cons. I think the pro for the government will be, we're not paying for the brick and mortar because, like Phil said, the brick and mortar has, you got doctors, you got a group of nurses, you got a group of dialysis techs, you got janitors, you got the lights on, you got the heat on, you got the air conditioner on, you got a big brick and mortar building that has to sustain life, that has to keep on going. And just to pay for that is a lot. And I agree with what Phil said on that. The only downfall I see with people going to home hemo in 25, 80% of the people is the failure mechanism is when somebody doesn't do it right, they go right back to the center. And with that being said, 65%, the majority of people on hemodialysis, on dialysis period, the population is over 65 years old. How do you make those people comfortable? And everybody doesn't have a caregiver. So how do you make that segment of the population comfortable doing their own hemodialysis?
Yeah, you're right. Not everybody has a carrier, or even, who knows? We may not even have enough in the world in general to be able to keep that going. But
enough what?
Nurses, caregivers that are willing to
Well,
step in that role.
Right, and I think the only like the people I know who did like Next Stage or Tableau, things like that. They usually didn't have too many times a nurse coming out to their house because they were just sending in their information. If I'm correct, I think the nurse came out like once a month or something like that. So you might be right on that aspect. But these are good questions. It remains to be, that's why we're bringing up these topics. And if you're out there, like or subscribe and chime in and ask us some questions so we can do some research and find out for you, some of these answers because these are questions we're learning ourselves.
Definitely. We learning with you. So, and some of these questions, not everybody thinks 100% identically. So you might have a question in your mind that we didn't even think to ask,
Right.
to try to figure out information wise. So you know definitely put in the comments those questions, whether you're watching live, later, whatever. We can always come back to them. We get those notifications when we get comments, so we can always come back, read those comments, and address those either on this show, or if we have somebody on the show on Sundays that may be speaking or that can elaborate on those questions, right? We try to use every possible situation that we have on the show to be able to answer these questions and be informative for the people. So
Right.
definitely drop those questions in there.
Yeah, Erica has a question right here. She said, "Sounds like it would be too overwhelming, but that sounds like a niche for kidney care coaches, home health aides." That is true, Erica, because kidney care coaches now, our nurse practitioner is she's being certified as we speak right now in dialysis nursing, and that could be a niche for us, depending on what it needs and what it takes and everything. But that's a good idea. I'll keep that in mind because, 2025, by 2025, I think dialysis is going to have a big change, especially with the artificial kidney coming out and all these new things coming out. We got Tableau, Outset is coming out, and, Fresenius is bringing out next stage in another capacity. So it's going to be interesting, and everything remains to be seen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we at the end of the time, and we'll probably come back on start like we did today, kind of started off with an addition, kind of coming back to this for a quick second just to kind of recap or re-answer any questions that might come up, and then we'll move on to another topic. So we'll never just like end it on a note like this. We'll always try to come back the next, the very beginning of the next show to kind of address those things that we may uh have not been able to get to the day before. So again, thanks for watching. Let's talk. This is a second chance. We will be back tomorrow morning as well. We're trying to get back on this for every morning, Monday through Friday. So definitely tune in, subscribe, like, share, drop those comments, and we appreciate your support. And we'll be back tomorrow.
Peace.
Yeah, Erica, daily, Monday through Friday. Try to get to it in the morning, if not in the morning, in the afternoon. But I'll give you some more.
Afternoon if it's Eastern time. I'm in Florida. He's in LA. So yeah.
Right, right. So we'll definitely be here. Again, well, it'll be like you said, morning for me because I'm on the West Coast, and it'll be afternoon time for Mr. Cook or anybody else on the East Coast. So we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great day.
Peace.